2017. We will begin with an invocation by Pastor Stackpole from the First Baptist Church, and then we will have our Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilman Rowley.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to be here to open up the meeting today. Appreciate that. So let's pray, shall we? Father God, thank you so much for what I believe that you've done is ordaining government, God, for the people and by the people, and so that we can function, God, in a way that you have always chosen us to do that. We ask for discerning hearts and minds, and that we would have success today in all that has been designed to be taken care of today. So, but always we want to say thank you and always give you praise and glory and honor. And it's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please join me in the pledge to the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we will now move on to our agenda order approval. There's one change we need to make. It's item number 2. The consent for Iron Gate Winery, it needs to be listed as Cedar City Winery LLC. That's the official name.
Move to approve the agenda order with that change.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we will now move to council business.
Mayor, last night, Tom Comstock, who's been here several times on this, discussing the same piece of property, part of the Just Serve project, they were up on Cove Drive near the ball fields and just did a beautiful job. He said somewhere around 300 people. Fred. Oh, there we go.
That's a better look.
That helped with that cleanup. So we thank them all for that. Secondly, last night at the debate, I actually stood up and clapped silently for Bruce Hughes and his plan to remove his campaign signs when we get our 155,000 at least visitors to the city. I commend him for that. I didn't see a lot of nodding heads, so I will ask maybe at least, like how the Germans and the Allies during World War I on Christmas Eve would go out and have peace in no man's land. Maybe ask all the candidates to remove their signs on the routes, at least on Cove Drive, and maybe on the route around on Cody Drive where the visitors will be parking. Maybe just that little part. They'll be able to see your signs when they go other places. But some of the candidates have 3 signs in the same yard and on Cove Drive, and less is more, people. Less is more. Thirdly, Ryan, winter's coming, and I wondered if it is in the plans to have that sidewalk west of the freeway in before the snow comes and kids have to walk through that again. Any idea, Jeff?
I think the last time I talked with Ryan Marshall, Public Works Director, last time I talked with Kit, they're going to be going out and designing it. They've gone out there and they've shot it and everything, but they don't think that they can do it before it gets too cold. Okay. And with that large of a section, they don't want to pour the cement because they're afraid it's going to get some popping and stuff. So that's a project that we're looking at doing probably in the spring.
Okay.
But it'll be in this year's budget.
All right. After the rest of the council say their things, I've invited Zach Sherrill here from the National Park Service, Cedar Breaks. They have donated a telescope to the city library for checking out, and I just wanted him to show that and show the telescope. So maybe if he has a class to teach at 6, so I invited him here for part of my time. But after these folks.
Okay.
That's your.
Do you want to, why don't we just do it really quick?
Okay,
Yeah.
come on up, Zach.
So I'm Zach Sherrill. This is, she's over there. Lisa Ricci. We're education specialists up at Cedar Breaks. And we just wanted to highlight real quick a new partnership between us, the Cedar City Library, and the Southern Utah Space Foundation. So with part of the grant money that we got a while back to host the astronomy festival that just happened for the first time a few weeks ago. We've purchased and modified a number of small telescopes, and we're partnering with public libraries throughout Iron and Washington County to make these telescopes available for anyone, any library patrons to check out, take home for a week at the time, and use it to explore our wonderful dark skies here in southern Utah. So before long, you'll be able to go to the Cedar City Library and check one of these out and play around with it at home and look at stars and planets and galaxies and all sorts of cool stuff. So we're really excited. We thank the library for helping us out with this program. The idea of checking out telescopes at libraries was actually started in New Hampshire about 10 years ago. And there's an astronomy club there that's actually put over 100 of these into local libraries throughout the state. So it's a program that's been very popular and very successful in other areas. And we're hoping to replicate that here with the help of the library and the Southern Utah Space Foundation. So
Nothing is foolproof because fools are so ingenious. But these folks have done quite a bit. A lot of times these telescopes come with a bag of all different eyepieces. You see that the lens cover is attached to a string so it doesn't get lost, but that's an adjustable zoom lens on the eyepiece so that you don't have to have 15 little parts that will get lost or swallowed.
We've made a lot of modifications to make them easier to use and harder to break. So, yeah.
So,
Lisa or Steve, did you guys want to say? Yeah.
This is something that, just very quickly, this is.
You
something-
still have to state your
Steve
name and come
Decker.
up to the microphone.
Steve Decker, I'm library director. This is something that a lot of libraries are beginning to do across the country. We see it all over, not only with telescopes, cooking apparatus, turkey roasters. You only need them once or twice a year. Why buy one and store it when you can check it out from your library? Library in Overland Park, Kansas has hog butchering classes. Libraries in Glasgow, Scotland have pole dancing classes. And Wi-Fi
we could do-
hotspots. We have not scheduled those, by the way.
I was wondering if we do hog butchering and pole dancing together.
We'll do them back to back and see which. Yeah. Kayaks. There are library North Logan for a while was checking out kayaks. Those kinds of things. So this is not new to libraries. It is new to us, and we're happy to start breaking into this field.
Is our 3D printer still working over
3D
there?
printer is working. It was a little ill and had to go to the hospital, but actually we doctored in-house, and it's working really well. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Mayor, I appreciated the quick response on the lights being fixed on Carmel Canyon. They fixed, I think, 3 or 4 of them, and that was much appreciated. Thank you.
Oh, great. Are there any other items from the city council? No. Tonight, there is our police department. I could let Darren actually announce this. Do you want to announce it? Your town hall. I was going to steal a thing, but I figured you could probably do a better job, so.
Thank you, council, mayor, and staff. Darren Adams representing the police department. As I'm sure you know, we'll be hosting a town hall meeting tonight at 7. So if you want to attend, maybe things you can rush them through and get this meeting completed. I know it's a heavy agenda, so
Yeah.
we'll miss you if you're not there initially. But we're partnering with the sheriff's office. We actually did our first one with a segment of the Hispanic community several months ago, which was very successful, and the sheriff invited us to go host this one. And so that's 7 to 8, should be short, at the Heritage Theater. We'll be in the theater, so comfortable seats.
Tell us about the facial
Sure.
hair while you're up here.
Yeah, the facial hair, we started a program. We did this last year, if you recall, for 2 months, and raised money for our local cancer center. This year, One of our own city employees was recently diagnosed with leukemia, one of our mechanics, and we all have a great working relationship with them and with him, and we decided we would use this this contest this year to raise money for him and his family as they face this long battle. So officers pay $20 a month, and we'll do this for 6 months, and they can grow reasonable hair, trimmed to a reasonable fashion. And we're hoping that it's a win-win because officers like this. They don't get to do it often, and we'll raise money for a very worthy cause. So
I noticed on social media, a lot of people were asking how the public could get involved. Have you thought about adding something?
We have
in the contest where we can vote or something and
Like you
pledge
get
some
out of
money.
jail free card, that'd be cool.
Yeah, that would. You saying you might need one? You never know.
Or how about a free traffic school pass?
Hey, there you go.
I'd put a high price on that, whatever it was.
Yeah, so we did put it out and gave the link to citizens who expressed their desire to donate. And so we have toyed with the idea of allowing the citizens to grow with us and maybe a contest for them that we could help judge. So we're working on that to see
Okay.
if we can't increase that amount, but that's a great idea. Thank
All
you.
right. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right. With that, we will move on to the rest of the staff comments. Yes.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Danny Stewart, Economic Development Director. We have a great historic downtown committee, and as you recall a few weeks ago, they worked on our Main Street. They picked the coldest day of the year to that point to work on some painting and some cleaning up here in the historic downtown. It looks great. They did a nice job, and they have another project scheduled for this Saturday, the 21st, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., doing some fall festive decorations from Center Street to 200 North here in the downtown. Nice. To decorate our light posts, to dress up the town with the fall theme, and public and each of you are invited to attend. So I'll give each of you a copy of this.
Have you seen Carolyn's Main Street? Scarecrow contest.
And they'll be wrapping all of the newly painted light poles in plastic so they don't scratch the
I was gonna
paint.
say, we're gonna do it carefully, right?
That was like the very first thing that was told to me.
None of that packing tape business.
They'll be wrapped so it's not going to hurt the paint. Perfect.
Anyway, we appreciate this downtown committee and the volunteers who are involved in these projects. We look forward to this project. It will
Very
look great.
nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor and Council, Brian Dangerfield, Director of Leisure Services. I'd like to add my thanks, as Councilman Rowley said, to Tom Comstock, and there was almost 500 people that were there the other night, last night, and it was incredible to see them working. Wade and his staff, he's been a little short-staffed. We've had some folks that have had to not be able to work lately, so it's greatly appreciated all the help that we got. Wanted everybody to be aware. I think, Mayor, if you already mentioned this, sorry about that. The SU night at the, or Cedar City night at the SU football game. And then on the 27th is when some of our hockey kids are going to be going down to the Vegas Golden Knights game. That's Friday night, and the game starts at 7. I think they have a few tickets left. If anybody is interested, they can go to cedarcityglacier.com, and you can get tickets there. And then we have our spooktacular at the Cedar City Aquatic Center from 6 to 9 p.m. on Saturday, October 28th. It'll be really fun this year. So that's my update. Oh, and then we also, on November 4th, we'll be hosting the Utah High School Mountain Biking Championship out at Three Peaks. That's on Saturday the 4th.
When was Cedar City night at the football game?
That's this Saturday night.
It's this game against
I know Paul
Eastern
likes to go to
Washington.
that, so
I ran into Carrie Fain today over at Three Peaks Elementary and asked her if she's going to be ready for December 9th, because there are going to be thousands of parents and little brothers and sisters roaming the city while their bigger brothers and sisters learn how to dance for the cultural thing. So this town is going to need a lot of entertainment for a lot of people that day.
They have cold weather, yeah.
Actually, are you and I the only ones that
Thank
were
you.
there last year?
Right. Are there any other staff comments?
You and I the only ones that were there last year?
No. Okay, then we will move on to our public agenda with our public comment portion. If there's anyone here that would like to address the council about an item not on the agenda, now is your opportunity. If you want to speak about an item on the agenda when we get there, just jump up and down or do something so that I can see you. So if there's anyone that wants to address the council,
Mayor and staff, and City Council, Tim Watson. Just to add to Mr. Dangerfield's comments, my sons participate in the mountain bike, the high school mountain bike, and there's estimated somewhere between 1,200 to 1,500 kids throughout the entire state that's going to come down for the state championship at Three Peaks in November. So it'll be a great opportunity to showcase the trails that our local community has built and put together and maintained, as well as I'm sure there's going to be a few visitors for other activities in the area. But anyway, it's going to be a great opportunity, and they're always looking for volunteers as well. But you can get there for the volunteer positions through the state mountain bike website.
What time of the month is that too?
This November 4th, it'll be a Saturday, and it'll most likely start. The races usually start at around 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, and they'll go until 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So they have quite a group, but they're coming statewide. Last year it was in St. George. They had 1,500 kids participate last year, and so it's a great opportunity.
Is there any kind of weather that would make that not go?
Yeah, last week we went to Camas and it snowed on us. So the first thing that they have is the safety of the participants in mind. 2 weeks prior to that at Snow Basin, they raced about 2/3 to 3/4 of the kids, and the rain was so heavy that they ended up canceling the rest of it. But that's ages 7th graders all the way through seniors. So it opens up for a lot of great participants, both boys and girls, and all the way through there. But that's a great atmosphere, a lot of fun, a lot of positive experiences for some of these kids. But if you have the opportunity, please put it on your calendar and see if you can stop by. So thank you.
thank you. All right. Is there anyone else? No. Then we will continue on with our business agenda with our public portion. Item number 1, consider local consent for Lighthouse Seafood and Grill, 2017 North Main Street. Start with the chief.
Council, Mayor and staff, Chief Adams from the Police Department. We have conducted an investigation on Mr. Reyes and found nothing in that background that would disqualify him from moving forward with that. So we approve.
All right. Are there any comments, questions from the council? We good with this to go on the consent agenda? All right. Item number 2, consider local consent for Cedar City Winery LLC, 59 West Center Street.
So we are good on this one, Renan. Do you want to just briefly explain the previous owner and the circumstance?
The owner hasn't changed, and they do have a local consent, but it's for wine tasting, and they're going to start selling glasses of wine, and so the state's requiring them to have an additional local consent form.
Are the distances from the church still the same distances?
Yeah, nothing's changed.
655 feet.
So we have conducted a background on Mr. Piersante, is that right? And everything looks good on that as well. Nothing to disqualify, so we would approve.
Are there any questions? Do you have anything else you want to add or anything? Is there any questions? Are we good on that? Questions? No? Good. Okay, that can go on the consent agenda. Then both of those will be voted on at our next meeting. Item number 3, a public hearing to consider an ordinance vacating the Cedar Woods Estate Phase 1 PUD.
Mayor and council staff, Tim Watson with Watson Engineering. We are coming to you tonight to vacate Phase 1 of Cedarwood Estates PUD. The next item on the agenda is the amendment to this subdivision plat. What we currently have is there's an existing home of Mr. Stratton that sits here on the corner. We included that property for a future building. And at this point, with that property being a life estate, Mr. Stratton, as each one of these units, these townhome units will be sold off, he has to sign off his portion of the ownership, having a life estate. So what we were doing is we were modifying the subdivision boundary to exclude his property so that we can, my client still owns the property with the life estate on there, but what that allows is Mr. Stratton not to be burdened at the time of sale of each one of those properties. And so again, at this point, we are requesting the vacation of this subdivision plat, and the next item will be the proposing the amended subdivision plat. Any questions at this time?
Mostly just a legal technicality kind of thing.
It is. Yes, sir.
Is there anything that you have to, do you have anything to add?
Planning Commission considered this, gave it a positive recommendation. It's really just a technicality, just to give the owner the freedom to be able to develop this as quickly as you can. There is intent, I believe, that one day the property will come back in.
We do have, yes, we do have proposed future phase, which depending upon the circumstances of Mr. Stratton, it could be some of these adjacent remaining parcels inside as well as his parcel.
All right, are there any other questions from the council? Then where this is a public hearing, we'll open the public hearing. If there is anyone that would like to speak on the matter, public hearing is now open. All right, seeing no one, we will close the public hearing and move this to our action agenda. Okay, item number 4, consider approving the amended Cedar Woods Estate Phase 1 PUD. Oh yeah, you get to come back, yeah. If nothing else, just to state your name again.
If I don't say anything, I don't have to state my name.
But now you just said something.
Tim Watson with Watson Engineering.
So this is just the other part.
So it just carves out that piece of property.
Yes, sir, it does.
Okay.
Are we good with, are there any other questions?
Just wondered if you want to say anything else.
Yeah.
Now that he said his name, you might as well.
Any other grandstanding you want to do?
All right.
If I stay up here, I don't have to state my name for the next couple, all right?
All right, we'll get that on our consent agenda. Item number 5, public hearing to consider an ordinance amending the city's general land use plan from low density residential to mixed use for property located at 1775 South Providence Center Drive.
Tim Watson with Watson Engineering. We have a piece of land, roughly 19 acres, that sits just south of Providence Center and the State Liquor Store along the frontage road out to Eagle Ridge, South Mountain. This property is currently zoned annex transition, so it has not been rezoned or developed or anything like that since it was annexed many years ago. At this time, the general land use shows it as a low-density residential. We are requesting that change to a mixed use, which will allow us to have a transition between the commercial that sits just to the north of it and the single-family low-density residential to the south and the west. The city owns the parcel here with the water tank on there, so unless the city gets into development, we see that staying as open space. But this gives our client the option to do. You don't own it?
Huh?
You don't own it, or you're not planning on developing it?
Yes.
Yes, we do own it.
Okay, all right. I saw the head shake, so I wasn't misreading that.
Yeah.
So it gives us the option to do. No idea.
We've talked about it.
But it gives us the flexibility to make a zoning transition between the commercial and low density residential as well. Any questions?
The cemetery is just.
It was mentioned in the debates last night that we, and by Mr. Hall, I believe, in a conversation with me last night, that we ought to, I think Ron mentioned it in the debates, but we ought to look at this whole master plan again to get it put in place, and then try to live with it, live more within it than constantly changing it. So that might be something for future councils to ponder.
This wouldn't affect the cemetery plans at all, would it?
Nope.
Okay.
All right. Are there any other comments or questions from the council? Is there anything that you want to add? Okay, then we will open the public hearing on this item if there's anyone that would like to address the council. Making sure that there. Okay, then we will close our public hearing and move this to our action agenda. All right, item number 6, public hearing to consider an ordinance for a zone change from annex transition to mixed use for property located 1775 South Providence Center Drive. Hey, welcome back.
Long time no see, Mayor. Tim Watson with Watson Engineering.
Is there an echo in here?
Yeah. Station off moving.
I think the mayor does that just so that there's somebody that'll have to state their name. Any questions? Again, this is currently zone annex transition, and our proposal will conform with the proposed general land use of mixed use.
All right, then we will, there are no other questions with the council. We'll open the public hearing. If there's anyone that would like to address the council.
Thank you.
Not, then we'll close the public hearing and again move this to action agenda. Okay, item number 7, public hearing to consider an ordinance amending the city's general land use plan from central to high density residential for property located at 105 East Canyon Commercial Avenue.
Hi, my name is Dave Clark with Platt & Platt Engineering. This property is currently zoned central commercial, like all the other red around it. Actually, this is the general plan. Yeah. So the general plan shows this being high density residential, and we would like to amend the general plan to make this high density residential as well. This is on North Main. Arctic Circle's right here. Wet Willie's Car Wash is right there. And that Fiddler's Plaza is right there. So just for your.
Does that?
The matter went through the planning commission. They give it a positive recommendation as well.
Just one note on this, there's a little bit of a typo on the agenda. It should say central commercial to high density residential.
All right.
Won't be out of character there with the other.
What was that?
It won't be out of character there with the high density that's adjacent to it.
Right. There's apartments right here, and there's a bunch of apartments over here, and this is an apartment complex as well. So it's in a quite a mixed use area.
Right. Does the council have any comments or questions or anything before we open our public hearing? If not, we will then open our public hearing on this item if there's anyone that would like to address the council. All right, seeing no one, we will close our public hearing and move this on to our action agenda. Okay.
I guess Heath Oveson's the only guy who brings in people who want to comment during these things.
Pretty much. Item number 8, public hearing to consider an ordinance for a zone change from central commercial to high density residential for property located at 105 East Canyon Commercial Avenue. Yeah, you get to come back out. See, Tim, it's not just you that I do this to. You're welcome.
Dave Clark with Platt and Platt Engineering. So it's currently central commercial. We'd like to change it to R3M for multifamily.
Does council have any questions or comments? Is there anything with staff? Okay, then we will open our public hearing if there is anyone that would like to address the council. All right, seeing no one, we will close our public hearing and move it on to our action agenda. Okay, item number 9, public hearing to consider approving the amended subdivision plat for Julian subdivision.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This one's a lot easier.
You
And
still have to state your name.
Arlo Fossen with Go Civil Engineering. But lucky for you, I'm not Heath. So there shouldn't be anybody that's upset. Yeah, it's just Heath. So what we've got here is we've got a subdivision, and there's single family unit lots on it. We're just going to take one of these lots and amend it so that it can have a duplex on it. Subdivision boundaries aren't changing, just the use of that lot. And we've already got some duplex lots in the area, and some, yeah, I guess all of them are going duplex. So it was just originally designed as a individual family homes. I think we'd have to zoom out a little bit.
Of any of these lots that are showing vacant, had houses built since the satellite photo was taken?
I don't believe so.
Yes.
Is there one?
There's someone who constructed.
Right now.
There are. And the neighbors, the people who are building in that circle have been notified?
I don't know that. I mean, if it's amended, we've notified whatever we've needed to do. But like I says, it's kind of all of them are going duplex, so we're just doing the same thing with one lot.
So the other two,
What's the zoning
the other
there
two
right
on the
now?
circle
There.
have houses going up?
I'm not sure what the zone is. Do you know what the zone is, Jonathan?
It would need to be at least R2.
Yeah.
But I'm not, let me see if I can find it.
And notice would have gone out 300 feet to all the property owners.
So point out where it's at then. I'm still having a hard time.
It's out by Cedar Meadows.
Oh, okay.
Just north of the elementary school.
Okay.
So we're right into there.
It's zoned R2.
R2. So
it is what it is. Right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it looks like that lot's R2.
R2 too, yeah.
Peace and love.
So the residents still have to be notified if it's just a subdivision plat change, where it's no zoning change. Okay.
All right. Are there any other questions from the council?
Just one clarification. It's going to be a twin home lot so that each half can be sold off separately. Is that the intent?
Okay, then we will open our public hearing. If there is anyone that would like to address the council on this item. Okay, then we will close our public hearing. Go on to our agenda. All right, we'll now move on to our staff portion with item number 10, consider the purchase of a new street sweeper.
Hey, Mayor, you're getting better at that.
Yeah, I thought you would appreciate that one.
Council, Mayor, staff, Jeff Hunter, Street Superintendent.
Jeff, let me say before you start that you've done a great job this summer getting a lot of things paved and a lot of things striped and a lot of things done. Thank you and the crew.
You're welcome. I'll let them know. Thank you. Okay, as you know, normally when I purchase I'm pretty dead set on what I want. But I've been back and forth with the sweepers. The sweepers are there's a lot of high maintenance on them, and there's a lot of moving parts and parts that the sweeping brooms themselves are, that's just a constant. But as far as the actual sweeper, and I think I've been a little nervous since the mayor said, make sure that you get a good one when we went through our budget. So I give you in your packet, we've test driven and operated these three different sweepers. And so we're kind of mixed down in the public works as far as which one. So I'm looking to you guys a little bit. I give you some pros and cons. There's mixed feelings because, as I stated, the bigger trucks move across town quicker. Their hoppers are a little bigger. But the smaller one, the technology that is there, there's no history. We don't have a lot of history on, how long it's going to last. The Johnston we've had for 15 years. The Elgin we've had for 9 years. They're a little different because one's mechanical. Excuse me. The other one is a vac, and that's what we're asking for. Excuse me, is a vac truck. So anyway, there was one typo error on the Elgin on the hopper size. It is in fact an 8-yard, not a 7. The smaller one, well, if you don't mind going through a little bit, the Ravo, which is the smaller one, it's pretty cool. They've done some pretty cool technology. It's got a front sweeper that will actually reach over. It gets in those deep gutters a little better. It reaches across and gets a quarter of the sidewalk, which we can get some of those weeds along that grows between the sidewalk and curb. There's some advantages. It's got
it gets the weeds. What, it can chop them, or
it just because it's spinning, it's
okay.
spinning and it's kind of rooting them up, and and so it's got some advantages there. Visibility wise, there's a lot of visibility, but it's very small. And I think one of the negative for me is just it's slow. Its top speed is 30 mile an hour, even though most of our roads are 25 mile an hour. We shouldn't be speeding, but to dump that load, normally we would, in our bigger trucks, we travel out to the bullock pit and dump, and we're back in town in just a few minutes. Where this one, we'd have to find locations in town and dump, and then come back later with the dump truck, and so there's kind of a disadvantage there to that, because we got to find spots, and sometimes we have to travel quite a ways just to find a spot to dump in. They do make a smaller one that's a 5-yard that will dump into a like a small dumpster, but it'll only hold 5 yards. So that we lose a little bit of of speed there, and so
what's your thoughts, Jeff? What do you want?
I knew you was going to ask me that.
Just buy what you want.
We're under budget on all three of them. I don't know if you saw that.
I can't see it in my packet.
Yeah.
I was really excited. Actually, to check, but all
have
three are under budget.
But there's still a ton of money for what you get. You know what I mean? I mean, they're just, I look at them and go, where is $250,000? But that's just the nature of the beast. I'm torn. The fuel. So one of the other advantages, so the smaller one is hydrostatic, so it only takes one engine to run your drive motor to run the whole thing. And they use the hydrostatic to run the vac. Where the other sweepers have two motors, just like we have now, and they probably run about 2 gallons more an hour, or 3, because you're using it. So there's some savings with the smaller one.
You reached out to other cities, what they're using?
Well, most of them are, because it's old technology and old, they're all using the bigger. There's only a couple of these out there. I guess there's some in Las Vegas, and where the smaller one really fits in a big city, where they probably park them in a certain central in an area, and they sweep, and they don't have a long way to travel to dump, and they have several of them scattered throughout the city. Where we got 2, and one of them is a mechanical sweeper that we use a lot when we're chipping, and that does a really good job. But this vac is the one we primarily use throughout the whole city, and because it gets in the curbs and sucks, and it does a better job in the curbs.
Can this Elgin be used just as a Vector truck on the side, can they all be used besides just sweeping? Like if the guys have
we can suck. If we didn't add that to this, because that takes the dollar amount up.
And you've already got
because
one
we've got 2 of them in the sewer collection, so we really didn't feel we needed to get the vacuum part. When I first done the budget, and we had a 290,000, that was with all of those extra bells and whistles. As we've talked this through, we just don't need some, and that's what's brought that cost down. So
now your Johnson, you have a track record with them. For how many years has this one been working?
The Johnson we've had for roughly 15 years, and the Elgin we've had for 8.
And the breakdowns on them, or which?
No,
it's just always always doing it.
Yep. The Johnston and the Elgin are almost identical, though. They're using the same cab and chassis. If you was to park them side by side, you can hardly tell. And what I like about the Elgin is it is U.S. made. They carry a lot of parts in Salt Lake and the others will tell you the same thing, but we've found with the Johnston, we've had to wait because, a lot of they're coming from across seas. So
what about the cost of the replacement parts? Like, you buy a Ford and the replacement parts are one thing, you buy a Mercedes.
I think the Elgin's going to be a little less. And we don't have any history with these
other guys. It's a really cool machine and that, but did you say there were any other cities that you've been able to?
Hurricane has one.
For how long have they had it?
I think a year. And they're happy with whatever they can get.
I like the idea of that, being able to reach over and chop up the weeds along the sidewalk. Of course, that's always a wonderful thing. Yeah. Seems to me like your Elgin is going to be your best all around bet to me. And other than that, maybe.
And that's kind of what we felt, just because of the getting around town quicker and responding quicker to accidents and those sort of things. Yeah. Plus, as well as we can just take it right out the Bullock pit. We don't have to handle it twice.
Right.
You can call Nina. She might have an opinion.
On the color.
And with that, do you know which one you want?
Well, I'd like to go with the Elgin.
All right, perfect. Bring it back next week.
I wanted to have this discussion. We never do this.
Great
I come in
idea.
here,
Bring it back
tell you
next
what I
week.
want, and you give it to me, and I go out the
Okay.
door, and I never feel like I.
Maybe someday these other guys will add a little feature that gives you the extension hose onto the sidewalks. But
I'm sure there's probably salesmen sitting right over here.
Yeah.
Just washing his, throwing papers and.
Really too, those trucks, they have to go almost full speed all day to even get around the town. So maybe adding on things like sidewalks would be more than you want to even mess with to start with. But
I see Ryan.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Next one.
So
Moving
Merry
on.
Christmas.
Consider
done.
disposing city property, Kenworth truck and trailer.
He's gonna make.
Can I spend the extra money that
No.
I saved? While I'm up here.
No.
Dang it.
All right, there you go. We're on item number 11.
I'm proud of you for trying.
That's good. We like that.
Because I do have, no. I'm looking at Paul because Paul's giving me that. Take you in the back room. Okay, so on the next one, I'm putting the transport and trailer on the, we'll get comparables and it's not a lot of money.
Wonderful.
So we're going to get out of the
Hey,
two, but we'll put them on.
thanks for getting rid of the junk.
Unless they don't give us anything for it, can we keep it?
No.
Just kidding. Jason told me to wring my neck. So thank you.
They're all, yeah, all of them. Ask Chief.
Thanks, Hunter.
Yeah,
No, they won't. Don't give them the option.
All right, item number 12, consider approving a road dedication 800 West Coal Creek Road.
This is a project that we're currently working on. We're just doing a connection onto Coal Creek Road for 800 West. The city owns that triangular piece of property, and so that's why the project's being done. And then going south is private property owners, and so the rest of that road will develop as those properties develop. But this item is just to do the road dedication for that short piece of 800 West.
What's the digging that's going on out in that area right now? Somebody building something out there in the middle of that?
Now they've been putting in the sewer lines and the water lines,
Okay.
and then there's also there is a property owner just to the west that's going to be building some buildings there. I'm not sure if they've started on that yet or not, but it's probably just the contractor working on the sewer and water.
Right. Are there any other comments or questions? Not, we good with this on the consent? Okay, item 13, consider approving a road dedication from 300 north to 400 north on 1100 west.
So this is just a little bit of cleanup. This road's been there for probably 30 or 40 years, but it was never actually dedicated as a city street. And so we're just going through the process now to get that cleaned up and make it dedicated as a city street on that section of road.
So has Jeff and his group been taking care of that all this time?
Comments, questions? No, we're good with this on consent. Okay, item number 14, consider an ordinance amending the sunset provision of the temporary 15% impact fee reduction adopted with the city's 2011 impact fee ordinance.
So this one got tabled last week. The council requested some more information. We put in the packets information on building permits for the second and third quarter of this year as compared to second and third quarter of 2016. We had some information on receding impact fee revenue. We had some information on fund balances, although that hadn't been reconciled yet. So that's just a snapshot. Please know that's going to change. Jason's got a lot of work to do to finish the audit stuff, and that's part of the audit stuff that needs to be done. So that'll change. So the question still remains, do you want to have the 15% reduction on the impact fees that were justified by the 2011 study go forward? And if so, for how long?
Well, since I brought the issue up, we were talking about we've got a lot of water costs coming in the future, and it didn't seem really responsible to me that we continued to discount water impact fees. But with the information that we looked at, we're getting new information to look at our impact fees. It didn't make a whole lot of difference. It was about $500 for a single family home dwelling that it would cost in addition maybe raise 100,000 a year or something. And since we do not have any of those projects in the city plan yet, I would suggest that we go ahead and leave it with the 15% reduction, but we need to next year start talking about it sooner than October, so we can have some time to really study and have good information and make a decision on that. So I don't know what the rest of you think.
I just had one person call me and I told them I'd interject their thoughts, was that we leave that, you know, where it's at, like you said, but if we were considering, you know, raising the water back up, can we raise something else and leave that alone? In other words, like Parks and Rec was suggested that they'd rather see the adjustment out of that instead of the water.
Well, that'd be the other direction though, because
So water impact fees can only go to water improvements, and so
we don't think that in the next
Oh, I
years
know
we
that.
talk about the wastewater treatment, that we would be able to put that money to use before the time limits ran out.
I don't, and here's why. The options we've talked about so far for the wastewater effluent have been multi-million-dollar options. And part of the idea is to do something with that water that's going to be beneficial for all the water users in this hydrologic basin. And that group of people is comprised more than just Cedar City. So there's folks out in the county, and there's folks in Enoch that share the same water basin. So I think we need to have a discussion at some point along the way. Who's going to pay for the project, and how do we spread those costs evenly across everybody in this water basin, and not just have Cedar City foot the whole bill? That gets a little more complicated because now we have to start making agreements with other entities to be able to do that.
Well, I've always thought, Paul, that with these water projects, we really need the CIC WCD to sponsor those so that the tax that's spread out. The whole county, not just Cedar City residents, because we're already, paying the lion's share of the bill.
Right, and the water
That's why
district,
we'd
the water
just be
district.
collecting this from Cedar would be the only people that it would impact. And so I think we need to look at it on a more broad scale.
The water district covers that whole hydrologic basin.
We'll leave it up to
basically.
you smart attorneys to figure all that stuff out. But
And that's going to take, getting all those pieces together is going to take some time and some effort. So that's why I don't think we can do it in a year.
Okay.
Okay.
And
But
until
we can get started.
have
Sorry. Yes, sir.
the projects and a new impact fee study done to include some of those, we can't use the funds collected towards those projects anyway. So that's the next piece, is also getting that study done so that then we can update our impact fee study. Now,
So those are in the works though, right? So we'll have good information that we can start working on earlier in the year.
yes.
Okay.
Now, considering last time I didn't notice that there was people. Cyril. Yes. Well, yes. That's why,
Who do you think Zerl's rooting for there?
as long as you say your name.
Well, I wore the garb to hopefully get a little sympathy.
It's a sympathy bid.
Actually, not. I
Boy.
had a little back injury, and I spent a good share of the day getting rehab, and this was the only garb I could comfortably get on when you can't reach down. So anyway, I usually would dress a little nicer, but I was out of action part of the day. But glad to be here. I just wanted to say a couple things relative to impact fees for the record. Again, I'm Zerl Thornock, and you're Paul Bittman. Yeah. And I represent the Iron County Home Builders Association, a number of members here as well. And just one clarification from what Ron was talking about earlier, because I heard from the same constituent, was indicating to me that she had talked with you about that. And her suggestion was if you didn't extend the discount on water, that you'd make it up by lowering the, or increasing the discount on Parks and Rec, so that we still had the same overall discount, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, and being the way you're discussing, I think certainly we as an association, we recommend the extension of the current impact fee discount. We're quite concerned about the already increasing costs when it comes to housing, especially housing increasing beyond affordability levels. Just a few facts that might be helpful. Average lot prices in Cedar City are at $50,000, according to Chris Dalen, a local appraiser. 36,000 in Enoch, 40,000 in the county. That's a dramatic increase over even a year ago. One of the concerns we have is that there's becoming a shortage of developed lots, as a lot of the lots have been purchased and are being developed, and that shortage bids up the price. And we do need to see more development done, and we'd encourage the city, the council to look at ways to maybe incenting developers to go to that expense, because it is very expensive to develop subdivisions. Building materials, lumber, concrete, plumbing, electrical supplies have considerably increased. 25% for lumber, concrete products at 20%. Plumbing is in the same regard. We have a plumber here, plumbing supply person here, who may have a comment on that as well. So we're seeing a big increase in materials. Labor, of course, is scarce and continuing to rise. You have to pay now $15 an hour just to get an unskilled labor to work on a job site. Framers are $22 an hour. And we're also seeing a scarcity because there's big calls for labor to go south to Texas, Louisiana, Florida, even Puerto Rico. And now there's going to be increasing needs for labor in California. When there already is a scarcity of labor, that's going to continue to bid the prices up. Rental housing is hard to find. Rents are as well increasing to levels on par with mortgage payments. Household incomes, on the other hand, don't support the affordable housing levels these days. According to Chris Dalen, as well, a local appraiser, now 2/3 of the market in Cedar City cannot afford housing at these current prices. Of course, we build a lot of houses for people who come here from out of town, thankfully, because they bring not only that demand for housing, but they also bring their retirement funds here and help us grow our economy. But our big concern is the local residents. As these prices continue to increase, lower income families are really forcing some families to relocate and leave our market as they try to find jobs that will support the housing costs. So unless they're working in the construction industry, and there's not enough of those, a good share of our households can't afford to buy or rent. And I want to remind you as well, impact fees are paid by home buyers. Our contractors have to maintain their margin in order to stay in business and of course cover their costs. And so impact fees really are a cost that's passed directly on to the buyer, a cost that doesn't impact the appraised value of the home. That makes it a challenge, because right now we're starting to see appraisals get close to the level where they support the financing needed, but that's still a challenge. And so we're concerned. We want to see prices maintained at a good level. So with that, I'd be happy to entertain any questions the council may have, or mayor, staff.
Do his comments comport with what you see in the banking industry?
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure incentives to get contractors to develop subdivisions will work until the banks will finance subdivisions
Yeah.
too. So
Well, that's
it's kind of a bigger problem until the economy really recovers.
It's a bit of a
So,
component. I was 30 years in the banking business, so I have some
Yeah.
experience there. And obviously, the financing isn't there because the numbers don't add up. You know, the margins and the profits available to, and the expenses that kind of burden that whole formula. Make
I'm
it
not
hard
s-
for the bankers to want to step in and put their money in a project that doesn't provide
I'm not
the
sure
kind of
that's what
return.
it is. It's more of projected.
Yeah, growth.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's yeah. Right now, there's concerns about that too, because we had projections in the 2008 or 2007 impact fee study that obviously, who knows the future? It's hard to tell. So, so we are, you know, we are concerned about impact fees. We want to, as well, remind the council that you know, we support things to help with growth. We also think that there are additional ways that growth can be paid for besides just assessing people who happen to buy new homes, because growth isn't always a new home. I moved here in 2006, bought a home that was built in 1982. I was part of the growth, but I haven't had to pay any impact fees. Someone who buys a home and moves across town because their family is larger, they're paying impact fees, and it's kind of random. It doesn't necessarily everybody benefits from growth, yet just a small portion of the population is assessed what amounts to a tax for, you know, for impact, for growth. And so we'd like
Well,
to
at
see
some
it.
point, that would have been paid on that home that you're living in for the impact of that. Whoops, this thing under here, sorry, I just kicked it. That at some point impact fees were paid on that home already. It's already paid.
No, because it was built before impact fees were.
Oh,
We didn't
okay.
have impact fees before 1996, I believe. So homes built before 96 weren't assessed impact fees. And so
Okay.
that's a relatively new. Anybody who's lives in a home that was built before that time, they didn't have to pay impact fees yet. You know, we certainly, I'm part of the growth
Our building,
problem, if you want to call it a problem.
Our building department report that we just received today said that we've had 474 new constructions this year. 101 of those were single family, or actually permits, I should say. 474.
Yeah, it includes everything, including rooftop solar and
1,755 total vacant lots. 969 of those are in subdivisions, and 786 are in PUDs.
yeah, I think the last number I saw, we were approaching, and this comes from Construction Monitor, who's a member of our association. Their numbers were closer to 175 single family homes, but you know, there's some difference in the numbers there. But we see a growth
You
of
have
about.
over there a way to get to last year's year to date on.
I think you're looking at permits for just 2 quarters, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just the second and third quarter.
Yes, for the last 2
number I
years.
have was a year-to-date number, so that's why that is different.
For the third quarter, there were 33 single family homes and 144 permits total. Then this is year to date, 474 total.
And we've seen about a 30% increase in Cedar City from the numbers we
that's
get
up.
year-to-date compared to last year-to-date.
All right. Are there any other questions for Zerl?
600.
I think we have other members that have, or association members that may have comments. So.
Yes. Thank you, Zerl.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Brad Green. I am another member, or my company is another member of the Home Builders Association. I also chair a local citizens group, advocates for a prosperous community. And, you know, the impact fees is something that's very interesting to both of these groups, especially the Home Builders Association. The Home Builders Association obviously has a self-interest in building in the area continuing to grow. We want a growing economy so that we can justify our livelihood, building and progress. You know, fees, taxes, permits, all of these things definitely impact what it takes to build and progress in town. And the higher that that cost structure, which also includes the regulations, the higher that is, the more difficult, more expensive it is to make that progress. Having said that, the comment, the thing that everybody wants to talk about on this topic is extremely valid. Nothing's going to stop the growth of our economy as much as running out of water. We live in a desert. It's just the plain truth of how it is. And so the fees, the taxes, the regulations, the permits, all of these things do hamper the building efforts. And we should try as often as we can to rein those in and make sure that it's as efficient and as minimal as possible. Because there's a snowball effect. You know, if we increase the impact fee $500, then housing goes up $500, especially new housing, whether it's, you know, and that's graded, my understanding, based upon the size of whatever the permit is. But that means my employees need to make a little bit more money, which means plumbing supplies go up in price because my margins aren't thick enough that I can absorb the new wages for my employees. And then when plumbing prices go up, housing prices go up. And when housing prices go up, everybody's cost of doing business goes up because now their employees all need more money. And so it creates kind of this self-propagating problem. Every little teeny adjustment becomes an exponential problem. And so we should be very, very careful. I was listening to the debate last night, and I heard Ron Adams say that he had advocated originally for this reduction, this 15% discount in the impact fees. I didn't know that. I was very pleased to hear that. Thank you. I think it's a wonderful thing. I think it's good for our economy, and it has exponential effect in our favor when we do that. It allows the economy to grow, which probably allows for taxes to increase as well, and is probably very revenue positive for the city. And it would be very revenue negative for the city macroeconomically were it to go back up. I'm very much in favor of extending it, maybe a year, maybe longer, maybe permanently. Let's find out.
Yeah, we need better information.
Agree, 100% agree. About the subdivision incentives, I thought it was very interesting. I really badly wanted to get up because Fred was egging the audience on to get up and talk about all these major planning changes, and I have a hard time keeping my mouth shut. You guys are aware. I have an opinion about everything. I'm not always right, usually. And the subdivision thing. Thank you. That was a joke, kind of. So the subdivision thing is interesting. As far as incentives go, people think, what, are you going to give them a tax break? Are you going to let them skirt by without permits, without, fees? I used to be a developer. No, I wasn't big time like some of these other guys. I was an amateur developer, but I gained some experience. I learned that there's a lot of costs that it takes besides breaking ground and putting in underground and maybe even curb and gutter. The burden, regulatory burden, as well as fees and permits, all increase the cost of building subdivisions. Getting approval for zoning and all the time that it takes for an employee to lobby for a zone change increases the cost of making subdivisions. If there's any way that you guys can think of that makes it easier, maybe not even less expensive in fees and revenue, if you can just make it easier somehow for these people trying to make subdivisions to actually do it, they'll respond. They'll respond quickly because to them, it's all expense, whether it's their employee time, whether it's their own time, whether it's the uncertainty of what's the city council going to decide. All of those things add to the cost of building a subdivision. And you guys have the power to make that easier on them without making the rest of the taxpayers subsidize a developer, which is definitely wrong. You can make it easier on developer and then everybody benefits. I do have a comment on water. I did mention how important water is to our growing economy. Now, I'm the guy that sells the pipes. So I'm biased. on this topic a little bit because I would love to sell lots of water projects to anybody that would be happy to pay for one. In our community, if the numbers are to be trusted that were quoted by multiple people at the debate last night, over 80% of the water usage in our valley is done by agricultural. And that's cool. I mean, I love agriculture. I love to eat. I love that my horses have hay. These are good things. They need an incentive to be more efficient, just like I have an incentive to be efficient. The Water Conservancy District limits my water. Where I live, I pay a little bit more if I go over a specified, randomly selected arbitrary limit. And it creates an incentive for me to filter the water in my swimming pool instead of draining it and starting over. The incentive does not appear to be there, and if it is, it doesn't appear to be very strong for these agricultural water users. Their water rights are a right. It's a property rights issue, and they use it. But if we could put a monetary value on that water for them somehow, maybe they could do with 20% less water, and they could take some money from the marketplace by allowing that water back into the pool of water used by everybody else because they got something out of it that allowed them to better their operation elsewhere. Is that raising water prices? I don't know, but definitely could we be buying water shares from our local farmers and ranchers instead of buying them from Beaver, or maybe as well as buying them from west of Beaver? If anybody knows,
we haven't purchased water from Beaver.
Sure, but we've been talking about the West Desert project. I think it's a great idea. Water is water. I mean, let's
purchase it from Beaver.
Sure, good point. Thank you. In fact, there's a dispute whether or not that they should have had rights to it, right? Isn't there some kind of an argument there?
Well, there used to be.
Okay, there used to be. Thanks, Brad.
Settled.
Nice way to word that. All right. So, and I think it's a great idea to get water in here. Although I know what it costs to pipe water that distance with friction loss and all these things. But we have water rights here that are probably not being used very efficiently. If there's a way that we can come up with, that you people with your studies and the things that you're doing to try and figure out solutions to these problems as our representatives, find a way to incentivize these farmers to be more efficient. They water all day and all night, and maybe that's what they have to do. In San Pete County, I sell pivot sprinklers, and they don't water all day and all night. They water when it's most efficient, and the pivots are expensive. But if that water had value, which it obviously does to us as a community, that water is valuable to us. If that water could be valued by the farmers in a way that they could sell it to make their life better, they would. And then they would use that money to make it more efficient, and everybody would win.
Those pivots with bubblers instead of sprayers.
I can do that. It's a little bit different cost approach. All of those things are possible.
We're working on all this, Brad.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah,
If you come to our groundwater management plan meetings, we're heavily discussing this.
Are they regularly scheduled? I'd like to put it on the calendar for my group.
Regularly scheduled, and you do have ag users there as part of the.
It's a public notice on the Utah website, so you can go there.
Love to have you come.
Subscribe to it. And
So, Paul, I'm curious, what kind of approaches are there right now to monetize the ag users'
We
water?
talked to Senator Vickers and Representative Westwood about some options to the legislature to help incentivize farmers. One incentive they have is one of their biggest costs is pumping costs, the electricity cost to pump the water out of the ground. So if they conserve 30%, that's a natural benefit to them. And so, we've talked about the state has really created this problem, right? I mean, they've over allocated our basin. So it's our problem, yes, but it's their problem too, because they created the problem. And so we believe, we've talked to our legislators about maybe having the state kick in some kind of incentive for them to conserve, to go to a bubbler versus a spray, so that they can, if they save 30%, it balances our aquifer right now. We're 7,000 acre feet short. And if they can conserve 30%, it's for right now, not counting growth.
That's huge.
It's big.
We could all drink only bottled water from out of state.
So we would love to have your input.
That wouldn't solve the problem. But 30% NAG would solve the problem.
As a supplier, these, it would be awesome to have you involved in this process.
Thank you. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you much.
I've listened patiently. Doug Hall. I'd like to give you a little different view on impact fees. Let's go back to some of the comments made by the Homeowners Association back when there was no impact fees. Well, the question then becomes, why do we now have impact fees? Back before we had impact fees, when a city or any entity grew, people coming in from like California and Nevada that were growing that, no matter who pays for it, there's a certain amount of infrastructure that has to be built to support that new growth. The question then becomes, where does the money come from to do that? All right. The legislature passed impact fees to put some of that burden on the new growth people that were coming in that were causing those costs to rise. When this city council chooses to cut back what has been a studied impact fee, in essence, what you're doing is you're putting a tax on me as a private homeowner, because the cost is still going to be the same to the city. The only question is who's going to pay that cost. So when you modify impact fees over and above what has been justified by the study, you are in essence moving those costs to every homeowner and taxpayer in that taxing entity. So it's not a free road when you cut back impact fees. The only question becomes, was it a fairly judged impact fee to start with? So that's where you really need to make the question is, when the city does an impact fee study, was it done properly? Was it done according to the state law requirements as far as what was supposed to be considered? And the bottom line is, if that impact fee was done according to that study properly, then if you modify that fee at all, you are shifting the burden of that tax to all the homeowners in that city.
Okay, Doug, I've got to play devil's advocate with you. Okay.
Feel free.
Okay, so you lived here, let's say you lived here for 50 years and your water pipes are worn out. Okay. Who's going to replace those?
The city, and that's going to be a function of O&M.
Right, but who's going to pay? Right, I'm just saying you've worn out those pipes, using them for 50 years, and the city and taxpayers are going to replace.
Right, the water impact fee is not there to support O&M. It cannot, by law, be used for O&M. It can only be used for new piping. So your argument there doesn't hold any water as far as that is concerned, because that's O&M. No pun intended. But the bottom line is, impact fees are there for a reason, so that if I'm a taxpayer and we have no growth in this city, all right, then the city doesn't have to put in any new wells. They don't have to get new firemen, new policemen, build new roads, any of that stuff that goes with growth. So everything is O&M, and I don't have any additional tax burden. As people move in and those costs are then seen for roads, policemen, fire, water, sewer, all of that, then if you don't have an impact fee, everybody that lives in that town is supporting those people that are moving in by paying a share of those additional costs that were burdened by those people moving in.
And Doug, as a member of the Home Builders Association, home builders have never been they don't want to eliminate impact fees totally. They want a fair impact fee, and that's where the home builders felt at the time when it was doubled overnight. They felt that was not fair, And that's when Ron and others and
Was it-
our council, I think, was reduced to 18% and then 15%.
Wasn't that-
That was why it was reduced, is because we didn't feel it was fair.
Wasn't that my
the home
point?
builders have never advocated that we shouldn't pay.
What, wasn't that my point? I said if the study was done properly, all right, and all the study items were used to determine that, then if you make any change to that fee, you are shifting the burden of that tax to every taxpayer. It's as simple as that. And one of the things that I think, was a real mistake last time we made impact fee changes was, number one, it took us forever to do it. They had been the same for many, many years. So naturally, when they jumped, if I was in a home builders association, I'd have gone through the overhead too. But the other side of that is I firmly believe that those people that have major impacts, like the Home Builders Association, should be involved in the process of determining what those new impact fees are. Because my view is if you're part of the process and you understand how it was done, you're a lot more likely to go along with what the final result is.
Did you just say go through the overhead? Is that a Navy term?
Yeah.
Rather, because you didn't have a roof.
Right.
On the sub. Okay.
Thank you. All right.
My name is Kelly Newville. I wear many hats in Cedar. My first and most important hat is I'm a lifetime resident of Cedar, and I love Cedar very much. I also am owner broker of Black Diamond Real Estate and Cedar City Property Management, and those are members of both the Iron County Board of Realtors and the Iron County Home Builders Association. Thank you very much. I'm grateful that we had a little bit of reprieve during that difficult market that we all experienced. Just even trying to put numbers together right now, as Zerl was saying, is very difficult, especially for the affordable housing. As we're going through this growth period, as we are able to plan for the affordable housing and our own locals is my concern. I'm even willing to be on a committee. I have a passion for Cedar City. But the study, in order to know where the impact fees, it isn't done. It was done, and then we had all these changes, and to change it again needs to be based on information that I'm grateful that we're talking about, doing the study again, find out where the proper impact fee is. In the meantime, it'll give us that we're just barely getting back on our feet again, if you guys recall. We're a year and a half back into a market that is somewhat profitable for the sellers and for the builders to build again, getting the numbers to even barely come in. Again, we've seen these huge hikes in prices just since of all the major catastrophes in our world. So, how is that going to affect us in Little Cedar City? In order to be able to get our balance, we all want that balance. A win-win for everybody is a win for everybody. And I still think we need to strive to get the information and know the exact number where we should be. And again, water, the way that we deal with it is a big part of it. And so, which is affecting this impact fee discussion. So I'm very grateful for our community if we're able to extend this even for the year to get more information, give us another year of healing and building to establish those particular strengths in our community. Do you have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Bruce Hughes. I'm a local CPA. I have a lot of developer clients. I have clients who own hotels, commercial centers, and this is a very hot topic for them. The basic philosophy of impact fee has always been new growth should pay for the cost of growth. And that argument is compelling. The last time we had the consultant here where we were reviewing our impact fees, I asked the question, how many of our new housing permits were new move-in people? And you know what the answer was? They didn't know. They didn't know. So I'm building a new house right now up on Mesa Hills. I paid $8,000 impact fee. I sold my house to a family moving from Colorado. Oh, new growth. Guess how much impact fee they paid? $0. So did I pay their impact fee? Should I have been able to tell them, look, you're a new move in. We have an impact fee concept here in town. You need to pay me $8,000 more for my house to compensate me for the impact fee that I'm paying for you. Does that make sense? If we really want new growth to pay for the cost of growth, it makes sense to me that we put together a welcome wagon committee. And when a new person moves to town, we go to their house, we give them a bowl of fruit and a bill for $8,000. And we say, welcome to Cedar. You just cost us $8,000.
Are you going to chair that?
Well, show me why that is not a logical thing to do. Because now, truly, new growth is paying the cost of new growth. Now, let's look at a developer who's doing a subdivision. What does he pay for? Who pays for the streets? Curb gutter sidewalks, water lines in the street, sewer lines in the street, laterals. Who pays for all that stuff? The city?
Pay a part of it.
The developer pays it, and then who ultimately pays it?
But we pay a part of the infrastructure costs that come in. The developer pays the minimum standard size, and whatever is above that, the city pays. And the revenue source to pay that
Because who do those assets
upsizing-
go to?
The revenue source to pay that upsizing is impact fees.
Yes, but now let's go back to that new home buyer. So now we have a subdivision, we have lots. There's nothing on the lots. We're going to build a house. When we build that house, what do we pay? We pay a building permit fee. We pay connection fees, correct? Connection fees for water, connection fee for sewer. And what does the property tax value go on that piece of property now? It goes triple, quadruple what it was as a piece of dirt. So now, every single year, that homeowner is paying higher property tax to pay for infrastructure, costs of the city, et cetera, et cetera. And if we look at something like water, what does that homeowner do also? They have a water bill every month. They have a sewer bill every month. They have costs every month that they pay that if that was a piece of dirt sitting there would not be paid. So this impact fee concept is not a simple concept. It simply is not simple. And we're laying the entire burden of that basically onto who? One industry. And this is an industry that is a significant economic driver in our economy. Significant economic driver. So we talked about when Rainbow Sign built their new place, and they had talked about, well, maybe we should leave Cedar City, right? And are we happy that they did what they did? Are we happy with the building they bought and the renovation that they did and their decision to stay here in Cedar City? And how much did we charge them on impact fees? Tens of thousands of dollars. So I just want to stress the point, this whole impact fee concept is not a slam dunk, simple concept. Doug made some good points that are valid. But this is not just a matter of, dang it, the new move-in should pay the cost of coming into town, because it simply is not that easy to look at. I'm still ticked off that I had to pay $8,000 impact fee because I moved from this part of town to that part of town.
You paid for the people that moved in to take your other house.
Exactly. I'm not new growth.
So how come
All
you
right.
didn't charge them $8,000
So
more?
Yes,
the
exactly.
council
Do you know what, you
discussion.
want to know why I didn't?
Would you like to extend it for a year? How would you like this to go on? It will be on
Thank
the
you.
action agenda. It's an ordinance. 1 year?
I think we want to go 1 year, and
1 year, and in the meantime, we
In
can
the
get the
meantime, we
study
just-
done and
yeah,
the
we
others.
need to study it
Okay.
closer.
Yeah.
Let's go 2.5 months.
It went what?
It went till November 4th. So if I use that same date, is that fine with the council?
Yeah.
Yeah, just so long as it's on somebody's calendar, we talk about it
It's
sooner.
on Zerl's calendar.
Let's go to,
No, he'll want us to forget it, and so we'll end up in the same
let's
place.
extend December 31st at midnight.
Yeah.
Then we can have hearings, like long hearings.
All right. Okay. Item number 15, consider appointment of Councilwoman Hartley to the Cedar City Iron County Economic Development Committee.
Did we have Chief Adams look into her background?
I hope not.
It was scary. All right. Can that go on the consent? We're good with that?
Motion to adjourn to the other building. No, just motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I understand.
Yeah. I mean, some very good points were made.
Yeah. It's just a sticky business. We just need to make sure we get a study that's accurate.
Doug,
Yeah.
I understand your